welcome to Beauties and Beasties, the independent pest podcast for the UK.
And what does it say?
Set up your studio.
Hello.
Which I'm doing. In the studio.
Hang on, one second.
Hello, everyone.
I'll just fill in for it for a second. Right.
Okie dokie. You know what? I'm just going to put you on mute, Sean, and I am going to fill. So, as you may or may not know, hello, everyone. I am back from my travels. I had a super intense 10 and a bit days of traveling around Malaysia and Indonesia, looking at pest control in a very, very different way. Whereas we are very much more used to the urban pest management and our rural pest management being out on farms or out in the sticks. This was pest management on a scale by which you probably have never imagined. We are talking of rat populations in excesses of the thousands in, these very different conditions that we are usually used to expecting. So for me, it was this tremendous opportunity and learning opportunity to see how pest control is done around the world in other places. And I know Sean desperately wants to ask me some questions about it, but ladies and gentlemen, we are just trying to get our guest online. So Sean is frantically paddling like the proverbial swan. He looks serene up above, but I know deep down on the inside he is absolutely working like the little steam engine that could. But as I say, I've been traveling, and it was an absolute whistle-stop tour. So I landed on, I flew out on a Saturday, I landed on a Sunday. I had my first team meeting that Sunday at the very sociable time of 1 p.m. Kuala Lumpur time, which actually was closer to 1 o'clock in the morning for me, or 4 o'clock in the morning. And there was no opportunity to acclimatize to the jet lag whatsoever, because over the course of 10 days, I visited on average, it was one site a day and one flight a day. So by the time I finished on Tuesday, just gone, it was an absolute whirlwind. Sean Miller asks, was there a limo waiting at the airport? There was not a limo waiting at the airport, but I did have my very supportive in-country teams come pick me up and took exceptionally good care of me, it has to be said. The food out there is absolutely fantastic. It's considerably spicier than the food that we are all used to over here, just as normal. But it was good. It was very good. But the great fun is we are so used to dealing with things like Rattus norvegicus, mus musculus, and very occasionally, as we said before, some black rats as well. I've spent an entire week dealing with rat species that I haven't dealt with outside of textbooks and technical sort of like reading. And so it wasn't just a challenge of a change of environment, which was absolutely incredible to try and apply our baiting control strategies across campaigns which last months of the year. It was dealing with a species that has a completely different behavior, biology, reaction to this. And so probably one of the most interesting things that we found is on one of the sites, they had used chemical controls to fantastic success. They'd knocked out all of the smaller Rattus species and been left with these Sumatran jungle rats, which were huge. They averaged, we had a look at some of them. In fact, I've got a photo of me just bending over, having a look at a pile of these rats that they had managed to cull on an expedition the night before. And they were these rats averaging 500 grams plus. And that was just an average size rat. There's some real sort of like dog rats in there that were well above 600 grams, which was fantastic. But the way that they're trying to get these, because they weren't interested in the chemical control options that were being deployed, because they had a different behavior, they had a different biology, they were exclusively honed in on the crops. But one of the other things that was very interesting is someone, somehow, not sure how, but someone had figured it out, that if you took the squeaker from a rubber duck and blew down it and made a little quacking noise, the rats would come out of the undergrowth and look and investigate. They would come right up to the operator to have a look to see what was going on, ostensibly because the little quacking noise sounds like another animal in distress. And as we all know, rats are easily big enough to be predators of smaller animals, probably especially predators of small birds. So with that, they were making these little quacking noises, and as the rats drew closer, they were then sort of like dispatching them with air guns. I was told that in a single night, this worker and his team, the supervisor and his team, managed to pull out in a single night about 2,000 rats from one of these estates. And I mean, that's, you know, incredible. And it's one of these things that this is why I enjoy pest management so much. This is why I enjoy this job, because we think that we have a lot of variety. We think that we have a lot of, you know, very diverse challenges in the UK. But ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that when we start to get out of the UK, past, you know, into Europe, then past Europe, then into the Near and then the Far East, and then even then sort of like Americas and Australias and the rest of it, it changes radically. And it's the same basic pests. It's the same sort of.
Ta-da!
Hey, and he's back again.
Ta-da! Hang on a second. Right. Right, wait. Can you hear us, Al?
I can hear you absolutely fine. I see
yeah.
that we've got our guest sat looking at us, so there we go.
Right, now you can hear us, folks.
Yes, we can all hear you.
So Stu's here. He says we're very quiet. I don't know why, but I think Clark, his son, is with him and will possibly give him a hand. You know, we're just going to have to bring him on and say, oh, hang on a second. He's went off again. So I've spoken. Yeah.
While we let Stuart get his sort of like stuff together, I know that you've been dying to ask some questions about this trip, because I've left you and Hugh solo for the last 2 weeks. So go on, ask me a little bit, and we may end up trying to do a longer, fuller feature episode on pest control around the world at a later date. But just for a little teaser.
Am I allowed to say what I've said to you already?
I can't remember what you said to me 10 minutes ago. I still think it's like midnight.
So long story
now
short, play a little squeaky noise, rats come out the bushes. Is that because they're I'm guessing that's because they're predators. Just they are thinking that is an animal in distress, like squeaking a fox in, and then they're just dealing with them as they see fit.
Basically that, yeah. So they're making a squeak, and it's interesting because actually in New Zealand, with the Predator Free 2050 campaign, the keyword there being predator, they actually classified brown rats within this campaign as predators, because they had enough information at their hand to say that actually brown rats predate small ground nesting birds. They'll predate smaller wild mammals as well, and there we go. So yeah, it's one of these things that when you look at it, you think that's amazing. This squeaky noise is dragging them out. But yeah, you're right. As soon as you think about it, they're predators. They're omnivorous animals, but they do have predatory tendencies. It's why we don't tend to find, you know, you'll find rats and mice in the same area, in the same geography, but you'll very rarely find them operating in the same topography. You know, you'll have mice upstairs and you'll have rats in the basement. If you start to find rats living where there are mice, you don't tend to have many mice. You know, after that point, they tend to get excluded or consumed.
This is why traps can sometimes be a brilliant addition to your armory, isn't it? Because you can use protein-based baits, can't you, to catch them?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, this is a conversation we've been having.
Pepperoni, all that sort of jazz. Yeah.
All that stuff. And you know, it's one of these things that we've known this for a long time. Everyone's known this for a long time, because if you catch a rat on a trap, what's the best way of figuring out you've got a second rat in the area? It's because that first rat is just absolutely stripped. So we know that they do eat them. The problem, and I said this before, is the scale of most of these people who formulate and create and make these rodenticides, just the scale in which they are working is very difficult to find products which are niche, which is why we all tend to have varying flavors and varying sort of like designs, the various sort of like products around a fairly sort of like core design, because that core design has been tempered, it has been refined over the last 75 years at being what works in 95%.
So here's a question for you. I think you don't have to be a pest controller long to understand that rats are predators. And we always think about rats. Well, I'd like to think that most decent pest controllers probably think about their predatory instincts. We don't tend to do that so much with mice, do we?
No, because I don't think they are necessarily. I know that. So when I was working at Church Farm and when I was sort of like down there, I know for a fact that mice are assholes. Everyone has their favorite, don't they? I like rats, I like mice, and very rarely do you like both of them. Well, I'm very much camp rat. I like rats, and I think mice are absolute awful animals, because they will fight, and they'll fight not to consume each other. They will simply fight because they're dickheads, and they will eviscerate each other. But they will predate insects, but I just don't think they're big enough to be an avid or active predator themselves. They're probably opportunistic, and they will certainly sort of like prey upon the weak, the elderly, and the child. But hang on a second. Hey, boo boo. Park down. Yeah, they won't go out and sort of like hunt in packs like tiny little wolves. So no, I don't.
That's going to be a conversation we'll have to have when you come to talk about rats and mice around the world. But at the minute we're running out of time, and we have the man, the myth, the legend. You don't know him, I know him very well. I'm going to bring him on, Mr. Stuart Begrie. How are you, Stu?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'll see the week out. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm good. How are you two?
I'll see the week out. So for anyone who doesn't know Stu, you and your business often look after our vans, and you are probably one of the most knowledgeable men I've ever met in terms of understanding leasing, hiring, purchasing, contract finance, etc. And it's something that is a small business. I don't think anybody really understands, though. We just go there, get a bit of advice, look at how much we pay a month and what we have to pay at the end, get the van we want, and that's it, job done. But we don't know if it's the right thing for us. So you're here to tell us exactly what we need.
Am I really?
Yeah.
So,
but I've just made a mistake, Stu. Before that starts, you've got to tell us who you are and where you're from. Like the game shows.
All right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Stuart Begrie, as it says underneath. I own Advanced Vehicle Leasing in Middlesbrough. I've had the business since 1997. I started it with what was then a friend who bless him, went off the rails a little bit, but that's another story. Currently run with my son, Clark. Clark's now, 35, bless him, been with the business since he straight left school. We look after many customers throughout the country, with possibly an old-fashioned philosophy of just looking after people. It seems to have got lost a little bit in this horrible world we live in now. We are finance people who happen to deal in vehicles, really, but also with a heart. Everything can't be an earner. Everything can't be a winner. If you look after people in the long run, just as you would have to look after your kids, just after you look after your friends or your relatives, if we treat our customers the same, then we'll keep percent of all our customers year in, year out. Industry average 30% a country. It's to my lad. I like to think how well they look after people. More complicated than that, really.
Just give a quick rundown then, because we were talking about this last week, not in relation to you, but in relation to others. Yellow Pages.
Okay. We were for Yellow Pages a long time ago, before the war. My background is in school and did law for 4 years. Decided I didn't want to do that, and they probably didn't want me to do that either. For a one-man band in Linthorpe Village, a lovely guy called Tommy Wilkinson, who we sadly lost a year gone Christmas at about 90. I think he was about 95. Typical fashioned, who sacrificed his life, really, single man all through his life, never stopped working. And in the end, the law society had to remove him at about the age of about 88 because I think he was making too many mistakes. But just a great bloke, gave me a good in on law, but on life, really. Always sort of tried to infuse in his own phrase was sense of urgency, which I think.
Stu, are you on your Wi-Fi? Are you on mobile? Your signal keeps breaking, mucker.
I'm just the laptop. I'm not home with the Wi-Fi. Would be on Wi-Fi, I would think.
Give Clarky a shout and tell Clarky to come and put that on Wi-Fi for you, will you?
He's buggered off. He came down in his underpants, which scared the life out of me. Is it no good from your end?
It's all right. It's just breaking a bit. That's all. But we'll get there, I'm sure.
Okay. When he comes back down, I'll get him. If I start interfering with this, I'll launch a rocket into Russia or something like that. So we really, it's not the best outcome. I was just talking about Tommy. Yeah. So I went there, and then I went to work for the Evening Gazette, the 21, and I worked in the old newspaper sales department, which was really looking after news agents and being responsible for everything to do with merchandising, the paper on the outlets, anything sort of air shows, wherever we had. Worked there for 13 years. I was manager of the Redcar office for about 6 years of that, which was nice because I lived in Redcar at the time when I was still with mum and dad. And then from there, for 3 to 4 years, which was great. Easiest thing you'd ever come to do because Yellow Pages was a printed Google. You can't explain that now to people how invaluable Yellow Pages had to be. Every office had 66, I think it was, which was a direct every area in the country. If you wanted a plumber in Bristol, that's where you went. If you wanted a air-conditioned bloke in Carlisle, that's where you looked. So that was a good background, really. It was something I fitted into reasonably well with having the background of mum and dad having a couple of shops in Redcar. Possibly made it relatively easy to understand people on the other side of the fence. And then from there, I was approached by Barclays to work in this industry. And for some unknown reason, they seem to think the Yellow Pages training was a good base, a good structure for what they were trying to do. So it was dealing with larger companies around the northeast of England. Not that we have many compared to the south of England, but that was another story. But again, it was something I enjoyed. And from there, I went to AT&T doing the same thing. And then ultimately worked for somebody else. It was a broker. He was out of Blackpool, but he set me up in an office in Middlesbrough, something which I enjoyed. But he didn't quite lie as straight in bed as I do. So it meant I wouldn't stay there that long and set up on my own. I set up with a guy called Craig Moran back there we mentioned earlier. And then 28 years later, here we are.
Class. Go on then, Al, you ask him, see what you think.
So I have to say, apologies, ladies and gentlemen, like Stuart's internet is a little crackly, so do bear with us. We'll try and clarify anything that does come through for this. Yeah. So yes, that's a very history. And I am just about old enough to remember the Yellow Pages, especially the adverts of
Thanks for that.
Standing on the Yellow Pages. Yeah, it's all good. I just like to throw that.
To be fair, hang on a second. The reason why you're saying that, Stuart, is because Al's actually younger than me. No one believes it, but it's true. He just looks like 67-year-old, doesn't he?
I'd have put him down as about 19.
Oh,
Not his weight, his age.
Bless him. But okay, well, I'm probably older than
I am
both of
here.
you.
No. So yeah, how then did you come to this? I mean, you went through this sort of like your range job that brought you to where you are now. What was it that inspired you to set up this? Not to set up the company. You explained that, but why this industry? Why vehicle leasing? Why was that? Why was that the direction you wanted to go?
Life's a lot of crossroads, isn't it? You don't necessarily, have a yearning. We can't all be professional footballers or pest exterminators like Sean. You find yourself at crossroads and you've got to make decisions. And I enjoyed Yellow Pages, but it meant working away for about 3 or 4 months a year, which isn't a great thing to do for a young family man with a young son who's now, like I said earlier, is 35. And without him, we wouldn't be able to talk here today. So you tend to, which way you find yourself. It was of the time where, we'd got a new house, we were moving forward, we needed some money. So you look at what you can do legally to make yourself a decent wage, but also something that you'd enjoy, something that gives you satisfaction. I'd got no great yearning to have my own business, unlike my parents, but it gets in there somewhere. One of my sisters is the same. I've got 2 sisters, but she set up her own shop. She lives in Sunny's Cleethorpes. She set up her own shop down there, finished up having a fish and chip shop as well. It's something in there, and we've probably all been able to be a bit more individualistic probably in the last 20, 30 years. People can make livings out of things, and it's something that, rightly or wrongly, I wasn't too bad at. And this side of the industry seemed to fit me. It's very immediate. You come across good guys like Sean that the main man can deal with the main man, and I think they appreciate the fact that we do things a lot differently, and that it's rewarding because you can see companies develop. You can talk to them on their own footing, and if you do it right, they genuinely know that we're on the same side of the fence as them. You're not just trying to earn a living, which obviously we all need to do, but it's satisfying to see Sean get more vehicles, to see the young lads that come through and then develop into grown men and then ultimately run their own businesses. We had our golf day. We have an annual golf day, which I think we're into year 13, which Sean kindly came down and had some free food, as he would. And we stood him on the 18th green with a flag round his neck so that the lads could hit at him. And we get 150 playing, which is a big old golf day, but they all come back year in, year out. And a lot of the lads who are Clark's age and older and a little bit younger now run the businesses, having been puppies when I first got to know them 28 years ago and a little bit earlier. So it's lovely to see how that progresses, and satisfying to know that we generally are helping people without sounding patronizing or soft or mellow. It's something that is rewarding, and for whatever reasons, I'm still doing it today.
So, I mean, that's a wonderful little story. The fact that because you are, a small independent, let's say, you are much more flexible when it comes to dealing with other sort of like independent entities. It's a lot, it's definitely B2B. It's definitely a lot more sort of like direct hands-on.
Hang on a second, just so people are aware, it's not just you and Clark, though, is it? How many you got there now?
What, that work or come in every day?
Well, that turn up and take away.
Coming for a warm. I think there's about 28 of us. We've got 6 or 7 admin and the rest are sales guys. My sales guys, outside of Clark and I, are self-employed. So they're, if you like, the sales agents, but they're part of the furniture and a trait as such. And this tend to stay with us. We've got probably over 50% of the staff will have been with us, and agents will have been with us 12 plus years at least. So they're part of the journey. And I've always said, once people get into our little world, they're unemployable anywhere else. So we're going to keep them. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's that's lovely, and it kind of like builds onto what I was saying before, which is you deal with a lot of, as you said, pups, and people stay with you a long time, but it also means that you are dealing with a lot of companies. And let's take pest management as an industry. I'm sure you sort of like lease cars to multiple other sectors as well. But these small businesses, and it's one of these big things, and predominantly we are talking about pest controllers here, and pest controllers are the majority of which are sole traders working on their own, having to stump up their own money. And in the very early days of setting up your own company, it's a big thing. Every penny counts, every cent counts. And so with that, there will become a point where you're going to have to stop using your daily runaround to do your actual job and invest in a commercial vehicle. And it's that tipping point. What's the most effective? Do I buy myself a second-hand van but own it outright? Do I buy something big and pay it back on finance, or do I lease? So can you talk us through, from your point of view, obviously you have a vested interest in the leasing, but can you give us sort of like a candid rundown for a lot of our listeners who will be thinking about taking this plunge, who will be thinking about expanding into this? What are the pros? What are the cons? What are the pitfalls of taking these various paths when it comes to, becoming the owner of a car and eventually the owner of a fleet?
Okay. There isn't a right answer for everybody. There you go, you come back. There isn't a right answer for anybody. What I've tried to make the business is that we can always say yes to whatever the question is. To some people, a new van is what they need, but it's no good if they can't afford it. So we've got another part of the business, which is AVL Trade Sales, which gets vehicles back from our customers. So we tend to put quite a lot of our business for commercial into a finance lease, which is a more flexible way of buying. So sitting on the same side as the desk as our customers, I understand, and the boys understand, that running a business everything isn't always 10 out of 10. If you take 12 months, you can have 6 great months, you can have 4 bad months, and you can have 2 when you want to ring the Samaritans. And what you need is people on our side of the fence that aren't just, oh, thank you very much, we took your order, without slagging garages off, like you'd find in a lot of garages, because they're built on a different framework. That's not how they work, where we sit and talk to people and get long relationships with people. Not everybody wants to be your friend, and not everybody do we want to be the friend either. But you've still got to have a business relationship, and if you can get a personal relationship, that's great. And also, there's enough of us to be able to talk through problems and help people out. So sometimes you might get a guy who might think it's the right thing. He starts his business, so he's got himself into a reasonable framework. He's suitably credit worthy. We can get him through to get him a new vehicle. But after 9 months, all of a sudden, either he takes poorly, or a balloon will go up and he's suddenly lost a big contract, or he's got a family problem and he might just want to get out of the vehicle. The beauty of the types of contracts that we set up is we can get people out of the contracts either at minimal cost or at no cost. So it's a different way of doing things. To some people, the right way is to get an old banger. You spend 500 quid, 1,000 quid. If that allows you to sleep on a night, if that gets you started, that's the answer to the question. And if that's the case, we'll find them an old banger. We won't make any money out of it, but if it gets somebody started, we equally know that 2 or 3 years down the line, they'll come back and talk to us about whether getting a nearly new one a bit further up the line, or they might plump straight into a new one. It might be that they get a grant to get started, or part of the franchise would be that they have to have a new vehicle. I had a company up in South Shields probably around 2001, 2002. And I did 600 vehicles to them, but they were all self-employed one-man bands. They were the type of business that we've all seen that go around offices with a little box with books in or games in or whatever, and they go back every week, and you order it and leave the money, and they come and bring bring it back the next week and go on from there. And that was wonderful. That was a great introduction, and we've still got a lot of those customers today. Unfortunately, the main business went bust. They hit the recession in 2008 and started going back on the standard of the products that they did. So the guys didn't do as much business, and they had to look for a business elsewhere as it all closed down. So a lot of those guys moved and got them out of the contracts and into something a little bit more affordable, because the plan's got to be affordability. There's no point in putting somebody into a vehicle if they're not going to be asleep on a night.
So if someone come to you, who is the, like, so you're going to sell someone, you've sold me a couple of vans over the years from new, or they're going to be like a lease or a contract finance or whatever it is. What's the pros and cons of each one of the products that you sort of offer? Because we're going to have everyone from one-man bands through to people's with 150 techs, probably, maybe even more, maybe higher number of vans on the road. So how do you know which one's going to be right?
By talking, again, you've got to people. We don't. It can't just be done by a lot of our contemporaries on email. Part of the fact is seeing the whites of each other's eyes if you can, and then trying to understand each other and find what works for the customers. What I would say is HP is probably more suitable if you're going to keep the vehicle a long time, probably over 5 years. If you want to get something new and replace it with modern technology, either you might be going to do high miles, or you just want a fixed cost, then a lease, and there's many different forms of leasing. Contract hire is the one that everybody knows, where it's a pure long-term rental, but it's very expensive to get out of, and we don't do a lot of it. We would always take the first option with most businesses after we've checked whether that registered, what sort of corporation tax to pay, whether it needs to be on the balance sheet, off the balance sheet. Because a lot of companies, the contract hire as an example, and finance lease, if it's off the balance sheet, it allows the business to look stronger if they need to borrow money for other purposes, or in the eyes of any company that might want to take them over.
Just to pin in that for a second. So again, like a lot of the people that listen to this are people who are getting new into the industry. They're not just new into doing pest control, they're new into running a business. And pest management is very much full of that. A lot of people who have taken the plunge to be self-employed. And a lot of what you just said then is going to sound scary. So you need to break that down a little bit more. What do you mean by, if you do X and you don't have, it makes you appear stronger when it comes to applying for credit or applying for cards? Just give us a bit more information.
Okay. If you've got a balance sheet, you've got assets and you've got liabilities. So if you're HP a vehicle, it would come down. In some eyes, it would be classed as an asset, but it's a commitment. In other eyes, it would be classed as a liability. And if you're going to if you're talking to the guys who are new to the industry and they might want to borrow some other money, it would be deemed, if you go hire purchase or bought it, it would be deemed as a liability, and it would reduce probably what other sources might lend them some money. So if they were looking to borrow some money to invest into the business, or again, what I talked about earlier, somebody might be looking to take them over. But if you do a contract hire, as an example, it's technically off balance sheet funding. With finance lease is the same way, because it's shown on both sides, but it becomes a cost rather than a liability. So from in the eyes of how the business is stronger, that's better from a balance sheet point of view. But I would always say to everybody, always talk to your accountant before you do anything, even though they'll come and talk to us and we'll hold their hand and take them through the journey. We could be seen from the outside, obviously having a vested interest. So you've got to have your accountant on side, because he's the guy who's got to sit next to you when you have your VAT visit, when you have your customs and excise people come around. As I've had those thrilling visits over the years, many of the time, they were more like the Gestapo when they came to see me last time. And they're really just fundamentally looking at ways of trying to get money from you, not necessarily make sure you pay the right amount of tax. But But I would always say talk to your accountant, because accountants can have different opinions. But we will sit and we will talk to people and hopefully take them down the right journey and be there for them when things go wrong as well. Because it's got to be that. It can't always just be a win-win on our behalf.
Has a question for you.
I can say this one. Yeah, it's okay. I do approximately 35 to 45,000 miles a year. Can never find a lease deal where the mileage is okay. Always find buying outright a van. It's a few of them. Yeah, that might be the right answer. But if you want something a little bit newer, that's going to still have your 3-year warranty on, if we do a finance lease, which I mentioned earlier, you haven't got a mileage restriction. So we could either do that down to 0. So whatever you get to at the end of 3, 4 or 5 years, any money we got back on the van would be pure profit, can go back into the vehicle. Or possibly contract hire if he's looking for fixed costs, which would cover his mileage, which would cover maintenance, if that's where the way he wanted to go down.
So you could do stuff with 35, 40, 45,000 mile a year on a vehicle.
Yeah. I did a company years ago. They were doing 200,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. I think he went home for his dinner. It was ridiculous. Yeah, we also did a vehicle a long, long time ago to Sellafield, believe it or not. We did an Escort estate to Sellafield. And the guy rang up after 5 years and it was the end. And he said, "Can I refinance it, Stuart?" And I said, "Yes, certainly." I said, "How many miles have you done?" He said, 48. I said, "What, 1,000?" He said, "No, 48. He said, "It's never been off the site." He said, "It's just never been out." 48 miles. I believe it glowed in the dark as well, mind you, with it being over there. But 48 miles. But I want to pay as little tax as possible, as I'm sick to death paying a fortune at UHMP. Yeah.
So that's where I am, Stu, and I'm looking at stuff thinking how I'm sick of giving the tax man money for nothing back. So
if we're still talking about vans, then it's they're all treated the same. You know, the vans is very low from a tax point of view. It's full offset against your balance sheet. It's a cost, however way you do it. And it's really, again, but it depends if you want to do a vehicle. If you want to do a car, that's a different answer. Like you can, bless you, Sean, you've just done a Tesla electric. If the emissions are down, you pay very little tax on electric cars. But the reality is, in the end, the government need X amount of tax from all of us. So they'll always just eke it up a little bit. But at the moment, electric cars, very little tax to pay. With regards to vans, electric vans, from my point of view, the jury's still out. The hybrid, I like hybrid vehicles. I've got a hybrid vehicle myself, where you can get the best of both worlds. If you've got somebody doing what you do, and they maybe go into the city, they'll keep the emissions down, so they'll be allowed to go in. If you go into London, I sailed through the centre of London not long back with my car, and Sean knows what I've got, and
I don't. Do you know what it is? You know someone's a baller when every time you turn up, they've got a new motor, but with their private reg on. I only know it's his car because it's parked in the same spot with his reg on.
Mm-hmm.
It was a blue Range Rover thing that looked like a footballer.
That's 3 years ago.
When I first saw you get in there, I thought Clark was a footballer and he'd lent his car to his dad. Honestly.
I've got a hybrid Range Rover Sport. But I could drive across the middle of London and didn't have any congestion charges to pay. So it's putting people in vehicles for where they're going to be in the country and what the local authorities do. What van deal gives me the biggest corporation tax deduction? Well, leasing, all types of lease, apart from a lease purchase, is offset against your corporation tax. So that's the simplest and easiest way to do it, as far as I'm concerned. It's just a case of give us a shout and we'll talk them through it. It's a 20-minute job to say, well, it's X and Y, but anything that's a form of a lease, apart from a lease purchase, offset against your corporation tax. So there's nothing to worry about that. It's down to your profit.
I mean, so far, yeah. So far, we've heard good things. You know, you lease a vehicle, you can offset it against your corporation tax. It's a cost as opposed to a liability, as you said. And we've heard that, you know, you can get a new vehicle, you can choose to purchase your vehicle. But on the run up to this, of course, we did some promotional posts. We had people commenting. We had a bit of bits and bobs, and there were several people who said the lease company that they were previously with, or were currently with, when it came to replacing the vehicle due to either a fault or to, you know, something that was outside of their control, it was tremendously difficult to actually get their lease company to replace that vehicle, you know, in a timely manner, if not at all. So is this something that's indicative of your side of the industry? I'm not, you know, casting aspersions on you right here.
No, you're okay.
You
You're
know,
right. So what they meant, they mean they had a mechanical fault, or that it was time to change the vehicle at the end of the contract?
no, I assume it was a mechanical fault it was a fault mid-lease. There was not a huge amount of detail to this, but it's, you know, a talking point. So a fault mid-lease, and the car needs to be replaced.
Yeah, the type of contract, if you've done a contract like either a contract hire or a finance lease with maintenance, then all things to do with the maintenance are included. But on top of that, you would have to pay extra if you wanted a courtesy car as part, or courtesy van. If you van, I think that's here. I remember you can hear the ice cream van going past. That's a contract thing. But where we stand alone, as Sean knows, if somebody's got a problem, we'll help them. We've got courtesy cars on the premises. We'll always keep people mobile. If people need to be kept mobile, we'll keep them mobile. Excuse me. And we'll stand in the corner and fight the manufacturers or fight the dealerships. I said 28 years ago, before I set the business up, that if the dealers were any good, we wouldn't exist. They've got lovely showrooms with lots of cars in, full of pretty girls and handsome blokes trying to sell people cars. The lights are on and everything. Yet we're in an office in Riverside Park in Middlesbrough, and we keep growing and growing as a business. We do things a little bit different, as Sean knows. We genuinely are in people's corner. We don't throw people to the wolves. Everything can't be a better road. Everything.
I'll tell you how much of a help he was. I was talking to him one day and I said something about hiring like a Luton van for moving house, and he was like, "I've got one." I said, "What?" It's like, "I've got a Luton van." It's like, "What for?" He's like, "Well, I think did you have to buy it to set up a company or something like that?"
Yeah, it's a good pal of mine. He's a boffin, right? He's a boffin. I've known him 20 odd years, Steve, and he's we did a Luton van for him, and we bought it back off him when he'd used it. He's an inventor, so he's invented batteries to fit into the back of commercial vehicles. So one of the things I've always banged on about is, until they get it where we can go into a garage a bit like we do now, and either somebody comes out with a couple of batteries or change it over, or they can charge it quickly, or one in, one out, or they get a much bigger range, it's never going to really catch on, because from life, you know, you guys don't want to be off the road. But what Steve's done, and it's almost ready for production now, is in the back of the bulkhead, let's take a bigger van, slide them in, slide them out, so that each battery has a range of 110 miles. So in the bigger vans, you can put up to 7 in. So theoretically, you could get 770 miles out of a van. But equally, if you only needed to do 300 miles, it would reduce the rate. You'd get you'd get more stuff in the back, etc. So that was why we had that. And we bought it off him and kept it, and lent it out to customers who needed it. Quite a few people moved house using that. Had a tail lift as well, didn't it, Sean?
Had a what?
Tail lift as well, didn't it?
Oh yeah, tail lift the whole lot. I was like, what? Like, got a van, yeah? But to be fair, you've always been good with us.
It could even carry your wallet on that tail lift. Yeah, we'll help people. You know, we'll help people. There's always a way when you've got connections, as my lads have. There's always a way. If somebody's in trouble, the last thing you need is somebody to put the phone down and tell them you're on your own. Tell us
about your worst jobs, and tell us about when things haven't went well, because you'll have a few of them over the years.
At the office, you mean? What we've got now?
No, I just mean in general. Just like, it's all right, everything's great in business, innit? But there'll have been some howlers over the years where you've shook your head or thought you were going to go bust or whatever it was.
No. we've had a lot of industry turbulence in this last 18 months where Martin Lewis has been whooping up on the television, supposing of this nasty word, commission disclosure. And, nothing's come back to haunt us. But everybody thinks that people shouldn't, how can I put it? Very naive if they don't think people who are in business aren't there to make a living. And he's been whooping it up as though, hidden this, hidden the other. It's put a lot of pressure on the industry, and it's going to cost the funders a lot of money. But it's just had the court ruling a couple of weeks ago where the only one that they've agreed on is, which seems to be an awful case, is where one guy, I think he bought a £6,500 old Vitara, and the garage put in 1,625 quid worth of commission, which is immoral. But not only did he do that, as I understand it, he got the car financed, and they wouldn't finance any more than the 6.5 grand. So he encouraged the customer to take out a personal loan to pay the 1,625 quid for his commission. So that's got nothing to do with an industry. That's a bad person and a bad practice at whatever you do.
So that kind of brings me on to my question off the back of that, which is, obviously we have you that people may come to you, they may go to others. Talk us through what our listeners should look for in terms of what does good look like, because it's very easy to make a decision on as you say, on a balance sheet. I'm looking at the same van, and this one is so many more pounds a month, and this is a bit cheaper, and this one will do me a discount if I do it for a year. But actually, making costs based exclusively off price, as we all know, is a road to misery. So what are the key things that someone should look for when they approach a leasing company in terms of, security to them, it being a good and reputable company, and as you said, where do you look to find those hidden costs? So what would be your advice? What are the key take homes for
there's a lot of good people out there who run businesses. Not everybody's a charlatan. There's a lot of people who do what we do. Over the years, I've met most of them. There's a lot of good people, but they tend to do things different ways. There's a lot of people who buy the business to sell, so they're looking to get their own balance sheets up and then move it on, and then the people that you've dealt with have moved on, and you've got somebody else have taken them over, so they've got a different ethos. From the individual's point of view, from the vehicle, you've got to make sure you get the vehicle that you want. So you've got to understand what you're going to use it for, whether you need a tow bar, what the carrying capacity's got to be, things like the length for stuff you might want to carry. We get people who will happily, they come and tell people they want a van, but they haven't really thought it through. They haven't thought about what they've got to carry, whether the vehicle they're going to have is going to be robust enough to do, as somebody said through earlier, 45,000 miles a year. There's no real bad vehicles now, although I've got to say some of the French cars in particular do fall about a bit easier than I would have liked, but that's been a thing for a long time. A good deal, it's an overall cost. So you've got to think of, 1, your monthly cost, 2, your fuel economy, if it's still good old diesel or petrol, 3, where you're going to go. So it's no good if it's a high emission vehicle. So when you're talking about getting a second-hand van, for example, if it isn't allowed or isn't encouraged to go into certain areas, and that might give you penalty charges or a daily cost, something you're going to be comfortable in. As people spend a lot of time in vehicles, the last thing you want to get a new vehicle, and it gives you a bad back. So we try and get people a trial, try and get people a vehicle for them to have a look at before they go out in it, or at least come down and we'll get one to the office and then go away for 2 or 3 hours and have a drive and see what it does. Because we've all had it, where you get into some vehicles and it just hurts you for whatever reasons. It gives you a bad back, or it gives you sciatica, or affects your neck, or you guys have got to be up and down ladders and all these little nooks and crannies that you climb into. It takes its toll on your body. So you want something that's going to be comfortable, a workhorse that isn't too thirsty. Electric vans aren't quite there yet. I would say I'd certainly look at hybrids. We had some hybrid transits in the office yesterday that were going to a customer, which are great. Your guys won't be into minibuses, but we had a company down in Leeds who've got 2 Vivaro minibuses off us with the claimed range from the manufacturer of 140 mile, I think 148 mile. And the guy had to go from Leeds every day to pick up his staff in Wakefield, take them back to Leeds. He could only get 40 miles out of it. 40, 100 less. So we got involved and we talked to the dealership, the manufacturer and everything. We got the great answer. Yeah, but the 140 isn't when you've got people in it. When you've got people in it, you can't go as far. What, those minibuses? What? Yeah, because they wouldn't be used for carrying people, would they? You know, it's sort of stuff you can't believe. Well, you know, when they went, we asked the questions. You know, we asked that question before we got the guy out of his vehicles because Vauxhall weren't interested. We kicked and screamed and threw our toys out of our pram with the dealership. And actually what we did in the end is between us and the dealership, we took the hit on the loss of the vehicles, but got the customer out of it and then got him into other vehicles. Because it wasn't our fault. But having said that, he's our man and we're in the corner for him. So there's no point in compounding his problem. A bit like I said about 40 minutes ago, everything can't be a winner. So it's important you get something that you're comfortable in. That company I mentioned earlier that I did 600 vans to, we did a lot of LDVs to them, which is the same as a Nissan Vanette. And after the first cycle of vehicles, after about 18 months, I took 6 guys from our original office at Ripon up to South Shields to collect them, to bring them back to the office, to sell them on for them and get them some new ones. And we took a hire car up and I drove one of them back. And I got in South Shields and I stopped at the services, the Shell services at Sunderland, and rang Peter, who was my man, and said, "You're not having any more of these?" He said, "Why?" I said, "I won't tell you the word I said, but it rhymed with kite." They were just dreadful. I said, "You're not having any more." I said, "You lose agents." He said, "Well, that's fair. We have lost quite a few agents." But those are the sort of things that are important, that it's got to be the right vehicle. Now, as for the method of funding, again, it's down to the circumstances of what people are comfortable with. Again, because I might think, well, yeah, £400 a month, £300 a month, that's all right, you're making this. But if you aren't comfortable with it, it doesn't matter what I say. It's got to be what's right. You've got to be practical. You've got to be real. You've got to be realistic. It might be that we can't help somebody because they don't want to commit to that, or they can't make up their mind what it is. Sometimes you just got to say, well, look, there we are, pop away and come back when we can talk a little bit more, or if you want to have a little bit more, or maybe save a little bit more money up so you've got enough for either a decent deposit to reduce your payments, or can we get money from somewhere else, or whatever. Just got to have a conversation like we do in life.
Absolutely, and that's where sort of having this more personal approach, I imagine, does you dividends. But Hugh has asked, and this was got me thinking when you were talking about different makes and models. Are there certain models of commercial vehicle where the manufacturers will sort of like release a lot of them to lease companies? So there is a preferred make and model that they will have a surplus of, and those will go to the companies.
One of the other benefits of leasing is the manufacturers will give substantial discounts to us, which you wouldn't get. Even if you went in and ordered 20, you wouldn't get it. We've got intermediaries we can buy from. On some vehicles we can get 35%. It's not every one, but it's certain ones. So when people come on and say, well, I want X, and assuming it's a new one, we'll say, well, okay, we've got X, but do you want to have a look at Y, which will do the same job for you, but it'll save you £200 a month or £100 a month. But then we've got to weigh in where the economy is, the insurance group it's in, because there's that as well. The insurance group can make a massive difference. The VW Buzz, which was the question that came up while we were talking, the overall cost on a lease is based on what we buy it for to what they predict it's going to be worth at the end, so that something like a VW Buzz has a high residual value because they're cool, so that there's less capital involved. So that can reduce. You can get a lot more. You can get some vehicles that are 10, 15 grand more expensive, but will ultimately be cheaper because they've got high residual value. You know, I just transferred some money for a VW California for someone today. It was a 66 plate, I think it was. It's £38,000 still. £38,000, 66 plate, which is what? Up to 75 now, 9-year-old. They just hold the value because they're great in people's eyes, you know. So it's the overall cost of ownership, really. And that's what we're all about. Just sitting with people and trying to save people money.
So does that mean that you would consider a VW Buzz as a sensible vehicle for someone because the industry's telling you that it's going to hold its value well towards better than maybe, I don't know, whatever?
Very much so as well. And also the cool. So if from an image from a business, you know, if you had 2 or 3 of those that stand out, everybody sees them, they look cool. You know, if you have an older vehicle, some people want you to turn up as a P, you've got nothing. You know, if you come in an old van, to some people, oh, great, well, he must be cheap because he doesn't spend much on the van. But they don't want it on a Monday morning when they want you to turn up at 10 o'clock and your van breaks down. You know, by having an older vehicle, it's no good if it's going to let you down. And also, you're on your own. You know, you've got no backup because you've just bought an old vehicle. There's nobody in your corner to help you. You know, you've rang me a couple of times when you needed something, you needed a vehicle. And we find, even if we get a hire vehicle, we can get one from somewhere. Might not be something we've got, but if you would, you know, the guy I mentioned earlier with the batteries, he's often down at Bristol and he'll ring us up, and Macaulay, who you know, Steve, my office, would sort him out a hire vehicle at Bristol Airport or somewhere like that. So it's not something we seek to make any money on. It's just something that keeps people in our gang.
So here's a question for you. Someone's just listening to this podcast now and they think, do you know what it is? VW Buzz could work for us. What sort of money are they looking at paying in terms of like monthly or whatever it is, or outright, or like you literally have had no idea, but you're going to go away, you're going to Google a VW Buzz and you want a little bit of a sort of someone to put a flag in a field somewhere. What you're sort of looking at for something like that?
No idea. I couldn't pretend. I couldn't pretend. If I sat at my desk and had my computer, I could tell you, or my guys could tell you. You know, if you're buying something that's 40 grand, 30 grand, it ain't going to be too cheap. But it's an overall cost of ownership, you know, or rental, and that's part of the plot to look at. What'll keep your costings down if that's the way you want to go. You know, some people, if you're cash rich, you know, there's no doubt at all. If something's 40 grand, you're cash rich, it doesn't make any difference to what goes on with your life, one way or the other. Some would say just buy it. You know, just buy it. You've got then no worries as long as it doesn't make any difference. But if you're not, we've got those answers as well. We probably 1 in 30 customers we have will just buy a vehicle, but we'll buy the vehicle for them cheaper than they pay at the dealer, whether it's new or used. So it's just, sorry.
I was about to say, a thought struck me and I was very impulsively jumping in there, but it was around what you said a little while back about insurance. Yeah. And what you might be able to answer a question that our industry has had for some time, which is van insurance is generally speaking, an absolute bugbear, especially with teams which are family units that are wanting to bring in a son or a daughter onto the team who are in their 20s, let's say, because the van insurance will absolutely destroy them. So there's 2 questions out of that, which is, does having a lease hire vehicle significantly affect your insurance? I don't imagine it could, but just double checking. And number 2, are you able to steer people towards vehicles where the insurance is going to potentially be more favorable for those younger members of the team? You know, help them pick the right vehicle that's still commercially effective, but is not going to,
No, the first part, there are I wouldn't say quite a lot. There are some insurance companies that won't do lease vehicle insurance. Insure lease vehicles, and the reason for that is when anything goes wrong, the leasing companies know what they're worth. If that makes so, in other words, they're up against people who understand the industry. So instead of them saying to the guy in the street, "Yeah, we'll give you $3,000 for your van," because that's all you've got left on your finance. It's $3,000, where really your van's worth 7,000. Well, we know that, and other people around the country know that in our industry. So you can stand in the corner and say, "No, just stop that. That's part of the plot where customers don't get a ride." And then also what I'd say about getting younger elements, getting younger people on insurance. We don't have a problem personally. We've got some younger guys in our industry, in our office, as Sean knows, some 18, 19-year-olds are allowed to be insured, but they can only drive up to, say, a 1.5 engine. So that's your criteria, getting vans that have got smaller engines, if that's practical. You know, if you need a big thing with a 2-litre engine in, then obviously that's not doable. But yeah, you've just got to look at it and think about, well, okay, let's see something that keeps your insurance at a sensible rate, because that's vital. Put them in something that fits into, so it doesn't make any difference to the insurance. So when Clark first got to be 17, and I got him a Fiat Punto through the business, we put him on our insurance, and our insurance didn't go up a penny at 17 for having an extra car on. And bearing in mind, we only had about 4 cars then through the business. Actually, as our cars, if you know what I mean, didn't go up at all, because we got probably 13, well, maybe 10 clean years of insurance, and they knew where the car was. It was a 1 litre. So yeah, didn't make any difference. That's part of the conversation that you've got to have with people, but not garages don't do it. And I would also, without criticising colleagues in the industry, a lot of our colleagues in the industry don't do it either. You know, you're only as good as the person you speak to in any form of life, or the person who's going to look after you. But you've got to work for the industry, work for the engine and for the type of vehicle, because you can have 2 vans that look the same. You can have a Fiat and a Citroen, and they actually come out the same factory, which they do. And there's an Italian and a French bloke who stick a badge on the back. But one can be 4 groups higher, even though the van's the same. It's just how the insurance companies judge them.
So here's a question for you then. As the owner of a large business, 28 members of staff, whatever, and all them salesmen, how do you monitor and how do you keep that culture where the salesmen know not to try and take the piss to pocket a little bit of extra money, if that makes sense? Because I'm guessing that's something that every person in your position has to deal with at some point.
Yeah, it's we've had little issues. As you're going to get, it's human nature. Anything with money can always bring out, the root of all evil. These expressions are there for a reason. You've got to have systems in place that you can keep a tab on. And if the relationship I've got with the guys in the office, it's got to be a form of a marriage. It's a two-way street. If I'd ever try to take advantage of them financially and vice versa, we're done. That's it. It's just one strike and it's out. It's got to be. I look at myself as a guardian of everybody else's money. Customers first, staff second. Simple as that. And if you work on that philosophy and I look after the money, and we put as many systems in place as we can. And if something's not right, or you smell it's not right, if I don't see it myself, somebody will come and tell me about it. Somebody will always come and tell me. You can't say 100% of the time, because it'll spoil it for everybody. It'll spoil what we've got. And it's not the Waltons, but it's pretty good, and it's worked for 28 years. And if something's wrong, it's my fault. That's the end of it. If somebody does step over that line, even though they might be self-employed, it's my fault. So it's up to me to clean the mess up. It's not the customer's fault.
So we've had a couple of questions come in as well around terminologies. So Hugh asked, because you've mentioned, again,
Yeah.
this is building. You've mentioned a couple of times contract hire, HP. So first off, what's the difference between contract hire and what does HP stand for?
Hire
And
purchase.
hire purchase.
Yeah, hire purchase. So
Okay.
effectively, hire purchase is a means for paying something over a period of time. So it's if something costs £1,000, you theoretically divide it by 12, add a bit of interest on, and add a bit of interest on, and then divide it by 12, and that's what you pay. So you're paying for something over a longer period of time. Contract hire is a long-term rental. So the finance house would take a view on what the vehicle is going to be worth based on the mileage that you said you're going to do. And one of the ones earlier on was 45,000 miles. So you're going to keep it for 3 years. It's going to have done 35 over 3 years, 105,000. They'll take a view on what it's going to be worth. When you get to the end of that, you give the vehicle back. Now, if you've done under the mileage, let's say you've lost a couple of contracts, and instead of doing 35,000, you've only done 20,000 a year. You're giving the leasing company back a vehicle that's got 60,000 on instead of 105. They're going to be quids in. You don't get any money back for that. You've taken a gamble on what you think your mileage is going to be. Conversely, if it's the other way on, the leasing company, 35,000 a year, if you did 45, you pay excess mileage. One of the reasons we don't do a lot of contract hire, and we'd rather look at finance lease for people, is you haven't got the excess mileage, but you've got all the benefits of contract hire. So it's a simple conversation, but it can be a lengthy, in some ways, conversation to explain to people why we think it's better. But in the end, it's your money. It's up to you what you do with it. All we can do is sit and have a conversation, and be there to look after people when they come to the end of it, because we're there for the full journey with people. So
do
yeah,
they wallop you on that? Do they wallop you on the excess mileage? Then is that what happens?
well, contract hire, yeah, they do. That's where they make the money. They want you to go over the mileage. That's where they make the money. We don't do very much of it at all.
And what sort of pennies are you paying per mile on contract hire if you go over?
I would say a lot of them will probably start mostly into double figures, but I would have said 8 to 12 pence per mile. And then if you do maintenance, that can be doubled or trebled up as well on top of that contract as well. That's where they make the money. They want the vehicles to come back with bangs in them, so that a £40 alloy repair, they'll charge you 200 quid for 150, where say they can get it done for 40 quid. They probably don't even do that when they put them to the auction. As I say, we don't do a lot of contract hire in the big picture. It's probably less than 5 or 10% of all we do. That's what some people want. But as I say, we tend to do a lot of finance lease, which we think is better. Well, I know it's better for the customer. I do my own vehicle that way, and I've done for 25 years. I've had the business. I do Clark, my son's vehicle there, all the time. We've done it. I do my wife's, Geraldine's, the same way. So we believe in it ourselves, and we know it works. And there's a little bit of logic is, well, if I'm doing it, maybe it might be the right answer for quite a few people. But I would never tell anyone what to do.
Do they wallop you for dents and dinks and all?
Sorry? Contract hire, yeah.
Dents and
And
dinks.
everything, yeah. We'd often say to people, or certainly if people are within range, either come on down or send one of the lads to their premises to have a look at the vehicle. If they're going to go back on contract hire, the most pristine you can get it is the better, because again, like I said, that's their profit opportunity. So we'd go and have a look and say, right, bang, bang, bang. As Sean knows, we've got an array of support that we don't, from a guy who'll look after dents and things for you, can repair leather seats, can put bumpers right, can do alloys for you, we'll get it serviced for you. So if you're going to go back, it'll be a lot cheaper than the contract hire companies that charge them. So I like to think we can help people at that end of the contract as well.
Yeah.
So just to confirm, with the contract hire there, actually what you really want to be looking for, if that is the route that you want to go down and you have a look, it's the small print around what happens when you go out of contract that's going to be the big hit. The contract itself, you might think, oh, these are really favorable terms, this is an amount of money that I can manage each month, but you've got a rolling lease and all of your parameters don't renew until the next year.
Where we're a broker, so we sit in the middle. So we've got around about 10 different 12 funders that we use and place the business. So similar, probably how we think of a travel agent. So it's very easy to get people in contracts, the skills to make sure you can get them out of them, because it's no good having a one-hit with people. If you're going to build a business and you're going to fit in the community, you've got to be there for the long journey. So we try to, when we've had the conversations, is put them in the right type of the contract. So as you said there, right type of contract. Contract hire is a long-term rental, but they make the money at the end, either on the residuals, from the dents, from the alloys, from not having a service history, from not having anything. That's where they make their money. They come back with charges. They're non-negotiable. Where the finance lease, which I mentioned earlier, is a more tax-effective way of buying. So you're going to get something for your money, but you've got the benefits on your balance sheet like you would with contract hire. And it's a lot more flexible. It's a lot more. There's no early terminations. Contract hire, some of the manufacturers charge 75% early termination charges if you want to get out of a contract early. The majority are 45 to 50%. Some are 100%. Where if you do finance lease, the interest stops the day you want to get out of them. So we can get people out of them relatively painlessly. Because again, the time when something goes wrong, either it's the wrong vehicle, or God forbid the business isn't so clever, and you might be going to close it down, or might be going to get rid of a couple of sales guys or a couple of extra colleagues who aren't doing the stuff for you. That's when you need help. That's not when you want kicking in the balls, to use Sean's expression. You need to be people in your corner that can help you. Because not only that, when the mist clears and the cavalry come, the odds are they're going to go back and they'll need you again to get some extra vehicles. So it's in everybody's interest to look after customers.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. And it's really interesting to hear you sort of like said, because I've never had to sort of like go down this route before. Being a consultant, actually, I can do 90% of my job out of the back of my, SUV runaround. So it's very interesting for me to hear actually that, there are so many different, it's easy to sit there and think, lease a car, box. But actually there's so many sort of like graded levels within that genuinely, to find the right deal for you, I think the only option from what we're saying here is you've got to go and talk to someone, and you've got to go and talk to the right someone, because it sounds like there's a lot of people out there who will they're looking for commission and just a commission.
It's no different to your job. It's just talking to the right people. I've talked to a few pest controllers over the years, and I've come across that chap in the top right-hand screen, and I'm not being patronising talking about that with Sean, but he's a top bloke, and he gets it, and spent time with us. And Sean does stuff for me that he doesn't charge us, and other stuff he does, and understands where he sits. We've introduced him to a few good customers, I like to think, socially. But he deserves it, and he would only be introduced to them because I know A, he's a good bloke, and B, he does a good job. So life to me is about it's people. It isn't companies, it's people. You're only as good as the immediate person you deal with, so there's no rocket science to it. If you're brought up properly or you understand things, be decent with people and look after them. Don't just think it's a one-off sale, because you'll never grow anything. You might make a quick buck, but
that's why I liked you, because I've never dealt with someone who was selling me a car that didn't look at us as a one-off sale. Because salesmen just jump them guys just jump from one to another, don't they? And it was like, all right, I get you. Like, It's like for us, it's like job work or contract work, and you can get one job off someone, or you can get a contract off them where you get a job every month for the next however long, can't you? That's like that was where I was like, all right, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you can't be everybody's best mate, but you've got to be able to look at people in the whites of your eyes, and do your best for people. You know, everybody doesn't necessarily like you, but I have a big problem if somebody doesn't trust me. I have no problem if people don't like me, which obviously there's plenty. No, if you do your best, people know, you know, and be there if the water gets choppy. You know, there's a lot of customers coming to our office, as Sean knows. They'll come, they'll see the lads and whatever, and then at the end they'll come and just shake my hand, or we'll have a cuddle, a man hug, or whatever we have. Oh yeah, the old get's still there, yeah. And it's a form of continuity. It's a form of solidity. They like the idea Clark sat in the other room, and that it's a family business. People like the idea it's a family business. So
yeah,
that's it. There's no magic formula to it, but we've been lucky enough to still be here after 28 years.
2 questions in one here. Sorry, go on. 2 questions in one quick, Al, and then you punch us in the face for talking over the top. Yeah. Pick us a van for a pest controller, and have you noticed a reduction in double cab pickup leasing?
Yeah, double cab leasing massively since they changed the tax. Fell off the planet. Simple as that. We've hardly done any since the change. It's a shame. It's been coming for a long time. That's probably 15 years in the making, that change of legislation. I'm not going to make any political comments, but they're obviously just trying to garnish money from anywhere they can. On in this country, we've got to pay for everybody else now, apparently. So they're going to keep taxing us, and they taxed us, and then when we die, they're going to tax on all the hard-earned money that we've earned in the meantime. Tax us again.
That you've already paid tax on.
That they've already paid tax on. Exactly. So again, that's probably a good analogy compared to what we were talking about earlier. Labour are doing a one-hit on us fundamentally because they probably know they're not going to be in 5 years' time. They're getting across all the policies they can do and squeezing everything they can out, and knowing that they're going to go, but they've got their ideology in place and left a freaking mess. So you mentioned about double cabs. What was the other bit? Oh, pick a van.
Yeah, pick a van.
You guys do you have Tranny Connects? Am I right?
We had one Transit Connect. I don't think I'll have another Ford off the back of it because Ford was so terrible. And it was only the help that you give us really that got us through that difficult time with them under the warranty on it. The Citroen Berlingo has been pretty good. In fact, it's done 120,000 mile, and I think it's had a clutch, and that's it. But we get them serviced regular. We get them, you know, if my van's going for anything, they'll just get serviced.
Yeah, you've got
anything.
It's the same as us. It's the same as us. We've got to look after ourselves. You've got to look after your vehicles. You can't expect it just to be sat outside in all the weather. To that when we go on holiday to Portugal and Spain, the vehicles are all battered and bruised. The 20-year-old, but they just keep on going because they've got a better climate than we have. Over here, where we get the wind and the hail and the rain and the snow and the sleet, the vehicles gets a big hammering. So you've got to get them serviced regularly. You've got to get them maintained, looked at, so that when you come out on a Monday morning, you've got a job 50 mile away. You know you're going to get in the car. You know it's going to start. You know the heat is going to work. There's very few bad vehicles these days, to be fair. Very, very few. You know, it's only 10 or 15 years ago Skodas were laughing matters, but now they're one of the best vehicles on the road.
Mate, I was saying this the other day. When I was a kid, if you had a Skoda, you were bullied. You were called a tramp.
Yeah.
Skodas and Ladas, weren't it? You would be absolutely vilified if you had a Skoda or a Lada.
Absolutely.
And now they're mint, aren't they?
Yeah, Skodas in particular. Yeah, great vehicles. Absolute great vehicles. But they are fundamentally Skoda, Seat, Volkswagen, Audi. They're all the same group. They're all made with the same parts. A lot of them are off the same chassis base. Just a different. I remember getting a a Jag XF. You know, I've lived a Jag XF, and I remember everybody trying to look in the boot for my Trilby hat. But what I didn't realise, it was just a Ford Mondeo. It was on a frame of a Ford Mondeo with a bit of leather and a bit of walnut in it. That's just how it is. We're often made off the same frames.
The best car I've ever owned was a Skoda Fabia, which is basically a Volkswagen Polo. And that's it. It's the same thing. It had the engine in it wasn't even a litre, like 1 litre. It was something like one of those classic 3-cylinder shoebox engines. It took 3 to 5 business days to get up to 60 miles an hour. Joining the motorway on the slip road was an exercise in your, maintaining constitution as you did it. But this thing on a single tank, which was barely 30 litres, would get me to Scotland. And if there was a wind behind me, it would get me back as well. It was the best car I had ever had. And I didn't get rid of it. It ended up getting written off because as I was driving through, as my partner at the time was driving through a car park, someone just literally pulled out of a bay and smashed it in the side. And because it was such a cheap car, even that small amount of damage was beyond economical repair. And it went. And that was it. The saddest day ever. I love that car. It was so shit.
For any of the young people watching this, can you remember the standard jokes? They were always like, why does a Skoda have a rear heated window?
So keep your hands warm when you're pushing it.
What do you call a convertible Skoda?
Skip.
A skip.
Yeah.
This
takes me back.
Absolutely. Yeah. They say the Lada. Yeah, I remember the Ladas as well. The Lada Riva.
And what was it? Yugos? Remember them? Yugos?
Yeah, YUGOs. Yeah, how old are you?
You go, but the car doesn't. That was the crack.
That's right. Yeah.
And all,
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, but there isn't the Chinese cars. The BYD. We've just got an offer on a new electric. They call it the Leap, which is about the same size. I don't know if I can visualize, sort of an X1, a BMW X1. So it's like a little bit higher. Electric, does about 250 mile range. £175 plus VAT deposit, £175 plus VAT a month for 30 months at a 10,000 mile contract a year. You don't get those deals anymore.
What? 175 quid a month?
Electric vehicle, yeah.
Wow.
It's
I guess so. Hang on a second. Are they just doing? Is that what the manufacturers are doing just to get them out there, and then that deal will stop?
No, I think I actually. What happens is we haven't had any for a while. It's one of the finance houses we use have come up with this deal. Somebody's made a mistake. Somebody there will be sacked. And about 12 months' time, when they start getting a few of these back, somebody's made a mistake because they've put too high a residual on it. There used to be a lot of them. There used to be a lot of mistakes we got. Ford Probes, £130 a month. It was stupid. Somebody's made a mistake, or they're trying to get business in and they think it's clever. But what they don't realise is 3 years down the line, 30 months down the line, when all of those come back and they're worth bugger all, they're going to be hit with millions, the leasing company. But the guy who's done the idea is either been sacked by then or moved on to another job because he's got the figures up. But yeah, we've got those 175 quid a month plus VAT.
Wow.
Electric vehicle.
Here's a question for you. Obviously not for me and Al here, but I don't know, say you have a fleet of 50 vans, 100 vans, whatever it is. At what point can you offer discount for people who are given large amounts, or is it just a one in, one out? Or what?
No. We'd always try and give people the best rate we can profit. People want us to be here at the same time next year, 2 years' time, 3 years' time. We're not a charity, but we buy the vehicles cheap and we get our money cheap. And our job is to piece the two together. And just make sure it works. We'll get rid of your old vehicle for you. we can do that in one of a few ways where we can advertise it for you and try and get as much as we can, or tell you how much your vehicle's worth and what we'll give you, and then we'll just sell it ourselves, and we might win it or might lose it. So Clarky always says, what my dad says is we like to be Tesco for vehicles. In other words, whatever the question is, whatever you want, we can always provide it. So if people want to buy it, new or used, we'll do our best for you. We'll save you money. If they want to lease it, contract hire it, we'll do that, finance lease. Our job, and my job in particular, is to get the right funders in place that keep us competitive and allow us to look after people in the best way. Save pennies, buy the vehicles cheap, add them together. Everybody's happy.
I'm probably gonna embarrass Stu here, because I know a story that he might not want me to tell on this podcast.
Okay.
Tell them about when you give the talk during COVID with the black mark on the back of the screen.
With what?
Where you went back and watched it and then put a black box on the back of
the annual.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was asked to do a presentation for one of the finance houses we use for the annual conference, and the guy came up to our office with his little video camera or whatever he got, and I've got a Jim Will Fix It album on my desk in the office, so I moved it out of the corner and just put it behind me. Oh no, actually, I started it when he first thing. I said, "Look, tell what we do. We'll do it, and I'll just be reading it, and then and then just talk." So we did that, and then 2 weeks later, he rang me up and said, "We can't use that. We'll have to do something else." So I put it at the back, and then just had a conversation about how business was, whether it was good, bad, how economy was, and whatever. And the conference I go to, there's about 250 people in the room, and warts and all, everybody knows me. They know I've got a bad sense of humour. They know I don't mean any malice. They know I'm childish on occasions, and the joke's against me. So the word had got out from our host that there was something going on. So then when it came up on the screen, I'm talking as normal, and behind me, as Sean said, is a rectangle, a bit like the Saudi Arabia used to do with the page 3, where the tits used to disappear. It was just a black rectangle, and it had gone. So it was a pointless exercise with either no humour there and no effort to make me look a twat. But yeah, good old Jim Will Fix It. He was a good man.
I like the thing is, though, I like that type of crack, especially in finance, because everyone takes it so serious, don't it? And that the bloke that you've got to come in and give you a talk as a Jim Will Fix It manual on his shelf of his office, I think that's just right up my street. I love the daftness of that.
Well, as long as you don't really believe he's a good bloke yourself, and people know that, then it's a joke against myself.
What do you mean? Didn't he fix it for a load of kids?
Well, what was it when I was blindfolded, milking that cow? Yeah. Yeah. But no, there we go.
There you go. A few of us are after a BYD.
Yeah.
Good, bad, ugly?
They seem to be very good. People love them. You get a lot for your money. There's obviously a microphone in there and a recorder, and it's all been sent back to the People's Republic, so they know what we're talking about. But very, very good cars. Very, very good cars. Very nice cars. I got in a high-tech N1 when we were away last Christmas. It was about equivalent to an Audi A8. It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. But they are a nice car. Very, very nice car.
I was about to put this one up as well, Sean. So Hughes asked, what happens if someone on the other side of the country wants a van from specifically you? So you've been on the podcast, people are going to listen to this. Take your advice, go and speak to your local dealer, but actually, who's my local dealer? I have no idea. Can they just come and speak to you?
Come and see. Yeah, no, we've got customers in Cornwall, we've got customers in Essex, we've got customers in London. Not in Middlesbrough where we base because nobody likes us, but no, we've got them all over the country. Some people we've never seen, but you can have time with people. You can do things like this. You can have a FaceTime and talk to people. Just talk on the phone. Some people don't want anything more detailed than they tell you what they want. They tell you how many miles they are. They don't want to have any dialogue. and that's everybody's right. You know, we can be like that. We can get arsey ourselves when we're doing things. You know, when Sky ring you up from Bangladesh to tell you, you know, you've got a new offer, we can get arsey. Just look, no, I don't want it. Just give me what I've got. Thanks very much. You know, so on the other, you know, the shoe can be on the other foot if you like. So you've got to understand that. That's what some people want, but. I always think it is nicer if people can have 5 minutes with you and just have a bit of time, and also know that there's somebody there to be in your corner if something goes wrong. You know, you can't always push the flood back, but sometimes what people want is a little bit of empathy and somebody in the corner. You know, same as when things go wrong sometimes at work or the lads have a problem. They'll come into my room. And sometimes they don't need me to even talk to them. They'll come in and they'll say it out loud themselves. And they go, right, yeah. And off they'll go. It's a regular thing where they'll, just by saying it out loud. Talking to customers is no different because there can be a lot involved. You know, people can be having personal problems or it's amazing how many people in business have matrimonial issues because they put too much time into work. And you know, you've got to understand that, as we all know, it's not easy running a business. One-man band can be a very lonely place. You know, you're seeing your customers, but they don't necessarily become your friends if you're just doing one hits on people or just seeing people. So coming out, sitting in a van on your own, starting a business, and you've got to do all your books, and you've got to pay your tax, and you've got to do this. It's not easy for people. So, you know, we get quite a few people, as Sean knows, they'll come into our place for a cup of coffee. And they don't necessarily sit with me, but they'll sit with either somebody who's become the pal, or they come in, or they come to golf day, or like Sean has come to races with us, and stuff like that. Neither of us are into racing.
The races is one of my favorite days of the year. It's like, it's weird because you get there and it's one of the days when you can just not be like, I don't want to say it's weird. You just get there and it's like, I'm the youngest one there, and there's like, and then you're the second youngest one there.
Absolutely.
So that tells you I've done it. And the crack's just good crack in it.
Yeah, it's just talking. And sometimes it's a lot of business people together, but sometimes not a lot of businesses talked, but it's just having that little bit of time away from the early burly of business. But equally, you can make good connections. Or the cricket, you know, we've done the cricket up at Durham.
Class.
Sorry?
I said the cricket was class. The cricket was absolutely,
Yeah.
That was just a great night, wasn't it? Sitting there and one of the lads got pissed. It was very funny. He got pissed, Al, one of the lads, and he started off trying to do his own Mexican wave, and it wasn't working at all. But he's such a nice bloke that by the time the third or fourth time he done it, the crowd was waiting for him to do it on his own again. And then that just set it off, didn't it? It's like, yay!
Yeah. We got our solicitor. We got our solicitor doing it as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
Our solicitor,
yeah.
If a crowd of you sort of like, you know, does this, then it's a Mexican wave. If it's one person, then it's just basically an interpretation of the wavy flapple, you know, inflatable arms band you see at the side of the road. So it's a very different vibe, isn't it?
Very good.
He was trying to tell the bloke next to him that he predicted the score and everything while he genuinely believed in it. Didn't he? I was like, oh no. He was class. He was great crack though. What a great crack.
Harmless rubbish. But back to the question about somebody on the other side of the country, please give us a ring or send us an email. We'll do our best and we'll look after you. No more, and I can promise you that, genuinely. There we go. Anything else you want to ask me? It's getting light again now.
So we're starting to run out of time. It flies by, don't it? But we always do sort of 3 questions at the end. Do you want to take the first one, Al?
Yeah, sure. So have you enjoyed your time on the podcast?
No.
Good.
Yeah, it's been nice. It's been nice talking to you. It's nice spending time with you. Whether my wife's enjoyed me sat in the other room for 2 hours, I don't know. I'll find out when I get in there.
Mate, Geraldine give
Oh,
us 50
yes.
quid to ask you to come on, man.
Yeah, all right, that's all right. There'll be 4 black blokes in there having a good time.
I want 25 quid an hour, so she can just oh fucking hell. I was gonna say,
Yeah,
so
anyway.
she can watch Coronation Street in
Yeah,
peace, but
yeah.
maybe she's doing that, I don't know.
She hasn't put a price
Yeah. Give us a shameless plug.
I'd like to think I've possibly done that in various ways over the last couple of hours, however long it's been. Please just come and talk to us. I promise you, genuinely, we'll look after you and we'll be competitive. And we're there when the times get tough. And it's a joy to see you when the times are great for you. That's one of the satisfactions when people are doing well. Don't begrudge anything from anybody. People put the time in, put their hours in. And it's a big thing running your own business. And I'm not just saying that because I've done it for a long time. I saw my mum and dad do it. And I've seen guys like Sean.
Give it a go.
Give it a go. Yeah, make a fool of himself. No, it's a big thing. Everything isn't always sunny. And it can be a lonely place when it's not. That's why you need colleagues sometimes just to talk to, because it's only the people who do the same as you that understand it. You know, with all due respect, your wife, or if your lady, your husband, if they're not doing it, doesn't understand it. Your kids won't understand it. It can be a lonely place. And you need people to just be there for you in the corner. So don't be afraid to talk to people when you are struggling. Not necessarily a bank manager or whatever, but people who are doing similar to yourselves, because the odds are we'll all have had it. We'll all have been there. We'll have all had the night you wake up in the middle of the night needing some money in your bank account, or when it coming, people haven't paid you, because as we all know, a job's not a job till you're paid. That's it. End of story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed. What's the third one?
Thank you. The third one, I was about to say, thank you for the advice. And finally, the third one was, who would you like to see on the podcast? Well, I'm going to have to caveat that, because I'd like to say, which other industry, which is pest control adjacent, do you think would be good for our listeners to hear from? So we've heard from bookkeepers, we've heard from debt collectors, we've heard from lawyers, we've heard from you, with vehicle leasing. What other sister industry, what other side industry do you think that every small business owner should have a little bit of time listening to?
How important in your world is what insurance do you need for the types of jobs you do, and the outcome? Obviously, be from a driving point of view, you need the right type of insurance. But I've just meant personal injury, or covering customers, or whatever. If you do anything wrong, or is that something that might be of interest?
Yeah, it is, and I think a lot of our listeners would probably agree with you there. It's a minefield sometimes, much in the same way that there's a lot of hidden costs with unscrupulous lenders out there. There's also a lot of misdirection from insurance companies as to what's actually, and which you never find out up until the point you want to make a claim, and they're like, actually, you were robbed on a Tuesday, which means
you don't necessarily need someone from an insurance company. You need, like anything in life, you need somebody a bit more independent, somebody who can give you just a balanced observation on the pitfalls and what you should be looking at, not necessarily trying to plug themselves, which I didn't really want to do on here necessarily. But we all need a little bit of help from time to time, whatever we're doing. Particularly me on
the thing. Just before you go, I've just remembered something which has come into my head. I hope you don't mind us saying, and I don't think you will. Joining trade associations or paying money to be in your industry, you've got like 28 members of staff. Like you were telling us earlier on about some of the things that you literally have to have by law and how much it costs you every year that you've just got to fucking shell out. Like it's a lot higher than what we are. So like, where are you at to, if you don't mind us asking, like what does it cost you just in them essentials to get in?
You mean to be able to trade in this industry?
Yeah.
Well, the good old FCA, which is the Financial Control Authority, I think they're called, is the sorry?
Financial conduct.
Sorry, I apologise. Yeah, it's been a long day. Financial Conduct Authority. I think I'm just sending them a check for about, well, not a check in these days and age, 15 grand, just to allow me for my bat and ball to be able to trade. We've also got the BVRLA, which is the British Vehicle Rental and Leasing Association. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Ask me that one. I only know the FCA.
You got me on the last one. I only had two to get, and I got one of them wrong. I have to pay them depending on the volume we do, which I have paid in the past 14 grand for. So you add the two together, we're not far off 2.5 to 3 grand a month. That's without the offices, without the staff, without everything else that goes with it, from the heat into the light, all of that sort of stuff. So that's just to buy a ticket for the raffle, if you like.
When you consider rental has like 1,000 technicians, and what a rental pay for BPCA is that about 40 grand, is it?
I couldn't possibly say, because everyone's fees are their own fees. But let's say the BPCA runs on a sliding scale based on their turnover. So yes, service companies like Rentokil are going to be the higher bands comparative to our small one-man bands. Now, I've got a question for you, Stuart. I mean, we've gone wildly over time, but I just want this one question. You pay 30 grand in fees to just two membership associations there. Now, let's take that. Well, yeah, okay. In our industry, can you guess, just a ballpark figure, what the number is? Because people balk at this all the time. It comes up all the time. People are, how can I afford to keep paying these fees? How can I afford to keep running this business when I have to sort of like pay the fees for my continual professional development, for my membership to a trade association? So just those two, membership for a CPD scheme and membership to a professional body to show that you are a professional operator. Guess how much that we roughly pay for those two added together if you are a, let's say, one-man band turning over between 50 and 100k a year, which is the lowest bracket. Bear in mind that there is a lot of kerfuffle around this, saying that it's too much. Can you just hazard a guess?
What would you pay for what you need to be able to? Okay, that doesn't count things like training and qualifications and exams and stuff. No.
It's a CPD scheme that shows that you are continually learning to be a part of us. Proficient, yes.
3 to 5 grand a year.
Less than £1,000. If you are really scrupulous about it, you could probably do it for about 400 quid.
Right. Okay. So about 8 quid a week.
Yes. And this is the funny thing, because again, partner of mine, she worked in construction, landscaping, and their fees were verging on, near to the tens of hundreds of thousands in various sort of like fees just to operate. Either way, that's the end of tonight with that. It's interesting because we don't know how well we got it.
It's a lot of these become quangos basically, and they become self-funding little organisations to give somebody a pension or to give somebody a job often when they've got out of an industry and don't add any value to your business. They give you a badge, which really means nothing to the normal guy or the man in the street. I'm afraid we live in a world where everything costs, doesn't it?
Yeah. Get your return, you get your return, don't you? Right, we're running out of time. Next week we have another old-time person. This guy is an old-time pest controller, and some of you will know him. Ian Turner was a force at one point within the industry, stepped away, wasn't going to do anything at all, but for whatever reason, I think because Hughes offered him money or something, or a kiss, I don't know, one of the two. Hope it's money. Ian said he's going to come on and have a chat with one. Ian done loads of shit, didn't he, Al, in his time?
He did, yes. He was the old
So-
technical officer at the
Next week
NBTA.
we'll have Ian. Do you want to
All
do
right.
the end of it? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm rubbish at the computer stuff, son.
Well, in which case, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to Beauties and BTs. I hope you join in next week. Stuart, thank you ever so much. And for all of
No,
us
it's been
here,
a pleasure.
good night.
It's a pleasure. No, you're nice guys. I don't like Sean particularly, but the rest of you are nice guys. Thanks for the good questions. And anybody's welcome if they want to ring us or get in touch if they need a little bit of help or just a natter. Doesn't always have to be a job or business. They're always welcome. Okay.
Excellent stuff.
God bless.
Thank you.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you for listening to the Beauties and Beasties podcast.